Now, there's no denying the lasting impact of a first impression, and especially where video games are concerned, an earth-scorching opening sequence can ensure that developers have players in the palm of their hands for the remainder, while a flat, underwhelming intro can leave them ready to dip before the first cutscene is even over. Now, a fun and memorable video game opening is one thing, but what about those video game intros that made us say, "Hell yeah"? Well, that's what we're here to talk about today. Knowing that the opening was so freaking rad that you strapped in for whatever else the game has to offer is a feeling we all wish we could bottle. These games transcend from time-passing entertainment to becoming formative, unforgettable experiences that many are still fondly talking about decades later. So pervasively did their intros make us feel like anything was possible. In short, they absolutely kicked ass and we were totally on board. So with this in mind, I'm Jules, this is the Future Games Show, and these are 9 video game intros that made us say, hell yeah. Number 9, Half-Life. Now, there are some lucky few of us who never have to go back to the office again and can work from home forever, and thus never have to take the sickly train or bus ride into work. The morning commute, ooh, it is stanky. But there is one train ride that we will gladly take again and again, no matter what the weather, and that is the opening of the original Half-Life. The groundbreaking, literally on-rails intro sees players being shuttled into the shady Black Mesa research facility, where the proverbial is soon to hit the destinated fan. In 1998, this level of in-engine cinematic polish, well, it was simply unheard of. Pressing your face against the tram's windows and soaking in the sights of Black Mesa's employees and, the G-Man going about their day immediately assured everyone that they were playing something unlike anything else. In just 5 minutes, Half-Life blew apart the very concept of what we thought video games could be about, and while the rest of the game is a bona fide masterpiece, it is never as better as it is in these mesmerizing opening minutes. Once Barney opened the tram door and let you out, it was clear that video games would never be the same again. And here's a fun fact for you, the tram ride was created after one of the game's programmers implemented a train-like element into the coding tools, which then served as inspiration for the intro. Number 8, Bioshock. From a tram ride to a plane ride from hell now, as we go into the absolute S-tier opening of the original Bioshock. And by the way, just so you know this about me, I love this franchise. A lot. Some would say it's an unhealthy amount. The game wastes no time at all, kicking off with protagonist Jack on board a plane which plunges into the Atlantic Ocean, only to wake up in the middle of the Big Drink, surrounded by the fiery remnants of his former means of skybound transportation. In short, his plane crashed. The player is then ceded control, and after seeking refuge at a nearby lighthouse, you'll find a bathysphere which initiates a ride down into the ocean's depths, towards the underwater utopia called Rapture, and trust me, I use the word utopia in heavy quotation marks there. After being regaled with pre-recorded propaganda from founder Andrew Ryan, Rapture finally unfolds before you, a seductively neon-tinged underwater metropolis. But that awe is hastily disrupted, however, when the, next events take place. How best to describe them? Oh yeah, some guy gets absolutely run through by a splicer. And it's horrible. At that moment, your remote sidekick Atlas asks you to oh so kindly pick up the radio, and the adventure truly begins. In no more time than players spent sitting in that tram on their way to Black Mesa, Bioshock onboarded players to this gorgeous world and acquainted them to the terrors within. And here's a fun fact for you, look closely at Jack's wallet just before the plane crashes and you can spot a business card for Bioshock developer Irrational Games. Pretty sneaky, right? Number 7, Lost Odyssey. Jeepers H Creepers, Lost Odyssey sure does pack a whole lot of awesome in its opening 10 minutes, doesn't it? Rather than making the player sit through snoozy FMVs, developer Feel Plus said, we're having absolutely none of that, opting instead for an expectation-defying fusion of cinematics and actual gameplay. Lost Odyssey kicks off with a gorgeously realised cinematic battle between two nations before protagonist Kame is summoned and lays waste to absolutely everything in sight. Just then, the camera suddenly spins around him and pulls out before the UI pops up and we're thrown seamlessly into actual gameplay. Even today, this would be an impressive technical sleight of hand, but back in 2007? I mean, we were idiots back then. We're not even smart nowadays, but pure idiot back then. They were blown away. The rest of the opening sees the player slice their way through combatant after combatant, and once you take down a heavy tank, the area is obliterated by a meteor, showering everyone with liquid hot magma. And just like that, with the land reduced to molten ash, and with your protagonist inexplicably unharmed, Lost Odyssey begins in earnest. Now, if the goal of a video game opening is to grab the player by the lapels and scream in their face, "This was worth your hard-earned moolah," then this definitely nails it. And here's a not-so-fun fact. Despite fans passionately begging developer Mistwalker to remaster Lost Odyssey, the company confirmed in 2021 that they have no plans to do anything with it. Sad times. Number 6. The Last of Us. Any lingering concerns that Naughty Dog's The Last of Us could fall short of the Uncharted trilogy were left dead in a ditch after its traumatic prologue sequence. Little did we know to cherish those peaceful opening moments in which Joel and his daughter Sarah spend a quiet night together in their home. Later that night, we're thrust into the shoes of Sarah as all Hellapalooza breaks loose. The city is rocked by explosions, and the neighbors, well, they've gone a little bit rabid. As you both drive out of town with Uncle Tommy, the sights become ever more concerning. Namely that people are out here snacking on one another like they're a McRib after a boozy night out. After the car is then run off the road, we're given control of Joel as he attempts to get Sarah to safety amid the chaos, only for a nearby soldier to open fire and kill her. The Last of Us's hauntingly operatic opening assured players that this wouldn't be a rollicking good time like Uncharted, but an all-time feel-bad game whose remarkable artistry nevertheless made it a must-play. Here's a fun fact for you. While preparing to star in the recent HBO adaptation of The Last of Us, Pedro Pascal had his nephew play through the game's opening sequence for him. Number 5. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. So, name yourself a more iconic duo than Hideo Kojima and intros that leave your jaw on the floor. I'll answer it for you, you can't. The entry that actually goes the hardest is actually one that Kojima himself had minimal involvement in. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance's prologue chapter was clearly designed to persuade fans skeptical of Kojima's absence, because it will melt your whole damn face off if you're not careful. Within 2 minutes of the game starting, antagonist Jetstream Sam has rocked up, flown through the air, and sliced one of your convoy's gunners into a dozen meaty chunks. As Sam's backup arrives, protagonist Raiden tosses his perfectly tailored suit asunder in favor of cyborg armor, then whips his sword out, and the player is then given free license to turn every bad guy into bloody Donna meat. Whew, if I wasn't already sat down, I'd need a chair. I think I might just go and have a little lie down. That's too much energy for one person to take in such a short amount of time. From there, you face off against a couple of Metal Gear raid bosses, all to some cheesy power metal, and then get your booty kicked by Jetstream Sam on top of a damn train. Now, this delirious opening section would have been a sufficiently hard-going climax for any action game, but Revengeance started out ridiculous and only got more insane from there. More than anything, though, it was a perfect demonstration of the glorious carnage to come. And here's a fun fact for you. Metal Gear Rising was originally going to focus on the boss from Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, but it was ultimately decided that Cyborg Ninja Raiden would be a better fit for Vanquish developer Platinum Games. And speaking of which, number 4, Vanquish. Okay, so remember that I said before that I absolutely love the Bioshock franchise? Well, multiply that, and that is how much adoration I have for this video game. Vanquish, I doth love thee. Now, there are literally dozens of us who fell in love with Vanquish upon its original release back in 2010, though in recent years the wider gaming sphere has come around to just how skull-splittingly fun it is. After hurtling through a RoboCop-esque tutorial, the game proper kicks off with San Francisco being decimated by a giant space cannon controlled by a band of Russian separatists. Yep. This is why I like it. In record time, protagonist Sam Gideon is shipped off in a fancy schmancy augmented reaction suit to disable said space cannon, and after sitting through an adrenalizingly chaotic space battle cutscene, you're given full control of Sam on the battlefield. Anyone who's played Vanquish can attest to how giddily satisfying its slick traversal and gunplay are, and right from the jump, you're given carte blanche to waste hundreds of foes, all while giant ships crash and explode in your midst. I tell you, this game is literally like watching a 5-year-old who is completely addled by sugar, just playing with their toys, and then you slide across the floor here, and then I smash this spaceship in there, here's all the rocks, some sand in the space as well. That's a dog feces, put that down. You'll go blind, mate. It is the dictionary definition of a game going harder than it ever needed to right away. And here's a fun fact for you. According to director Shinji Mikami himself, Vanquish's visual style was inspired by 1970s anime series Casshern. Number 3. Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. Far Cry 3 spin-off Blood Dragon is a box of frogs shipped on a boatload of crazy and an unrelentingly ridiculous pastiche of 1980s pop culture. It's also a game that evidently sees the notion of hand-holding and introducing the player to the world gently as, well, kind of an insult. One that it took very personally. This is a game that begins with a retro-style cutscene explaining that the world is now an irradiated dystopia and that our protagonist Rex Power Cult is a cybernetic super soldier, who is voiced by Terminator and Alien star Michael Biehn no less. Soon enough, you're shipped off to an unnamed island to seek out a rogue colonel, at which point the player is handed the controls to a chopper-mounted Gatling gun in order to assault an enemy base. And because watching everything in sight melt before your very eyes isn't enough of a testosterone-fueled power fantasy, the mayhem is set to Long Tall Sally, the iconic opening song from Predator, assuredly one of the manliest works of cinema ever produced. It's the sort of fist-pumping intro that'll make you want to grow a beard, crack a beer, and smoke a cigarette. But your combat high soon enough gets brought back down to earth in hilariously tongue-in-cheek fashion when the tutorial takes your weapons away and patronizingly tasks you with demonstrating how to look around, run, jump, crouch, and so on. All the same, Blood Dragon's opening 10 minutes are basically everything that you should love about the 80s. It's neon, it's garish, and it is so very over the top. And here's a fun fact for you. Despite being a standalone expansion to one of the biggest gaming franchises ever, Blood Dragon was developed in less than 6 months. Bravo. Number 2. Infamous. As hard as all of these games hit right from the early going, none of them plunges the player into chaos quite as immediately as Infamous. The game's menu screen might offer up a pleasant enough glimpse of Empire City, but the second you press the start button, the area is rocked by a gigantic explosion. When protagonist Cole McGrath wakes up, he finds himself inside a fiery crater that used to be part of Empire City. The player is then given control to navigate the city's crumbling remnants and reckon with the fact that Cole has inexplicably received lightning-based superpowers. Cole eventually collapses, and a grim comic book-style video details the fresh hell that transpired in the following days. A plague, rioting, mass suicides, and the city being locked down in an attempt to contain the surging pandemic. But Cole, who is just learning to harness his superpowers, may be the city's final hope, or its utter impending nightmare. But either way, Infamous now begins. Has any game ever crammed more sheer incident into barely 5 minutes? I mean, you get a terrorist attack, a plague, and a superhero origin story all collided into one another in record time, and it is awesome. And here's a fun fact for you, Cole's origin story was actually inspired by 2 DC comics, DMZ and Batman No Man's Land. And number 1. And leaving the deepest cut for the very last, we now turn to the 1997 absolute stormer of a game, One for the PlayStation Een. That's Welsh for one. Now, One revolves around John Kane, a man who wakes up with no memory and one of his arms replaced with a giant gun because this was the early PlayStation era, why the hell not? And One certainly gives the other games on this list a run for their money in the not pissing about stakes, given that the very first thing that happens is a police helicopter firing a missile through your apartment window. Now that is definitely going to wake you up. You ain't going to be hitting the snooze button on that, are you? You're then handed control of John and forced to hightail it with said chopper giving chase. Oh, and the buildings falling to pieces while you're trying to escape as well. It is pure, unadulterated mayhem, and that's what makes it so goddamn good. The entire opening stage doesn't stop for the player to question why they're actually running, but it immediately confirms what an energizing hell-for-leather sprint of an action extravaganza One truly is. And here's a final fun fact for you. One was actually developed by Visual Concepts, who are better known today for sport games like NBA and WWE 2K. And there we go, my friends. Those were 9 video game intros that made you say, hell yeah, brother! I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules, and you can go follow me over on the social medias, both Instagram and Twitter, where I'm at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there, my friends. But before I go, I just want to say something to you. Yes, you watching this video. Welcome to the Future Games Show. I hope that you enjoy what you find over here, but also take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself, my friend, because there's only one of you, and you are the bloody best. So go out there and smash your life goals today, because I believe in you, and you need to believe in yourself as well. Big love to you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.